news, current affairs, facts and opinion. Their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
And welcome, folks, back to the McIntyre Report. I'm joined today by independent journalist all the way from America, Ryan. Welcome to the show, Ryan. McIntyre Report. I saw one of your clips recently talking about MAGA, obviously been very outspoken on the Charlie Kirk issue. Obviously, many of us believe that, Israel was behind the killing, assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here at Australian National Review, we put up $1 million challenge immediately that it was Israel behind it. We raised that to 10 million within 24 hours. And we don't think we're going to lose that money. First of all, your thoughts on the Charlie Kirk issue and Candace Owens' great work to date on really pursuing that.
Yeah, man. Jamie, thanks so much for having me, man. It's super excited to be on your show. It's my first time here, man, and I've heard nothing but great things and love the work that you're putting out there, man. So thank you again for bringing me on. The Charlie Kirk investigation, where do you want to start at, man? I mean, it's absolutely, mind-blowing. The conspiracy theory is the FBI's story, right? So if you start just from the very basics at the very, very beginning with Tyler Robinson, like what we do know, what we don't know, but we absolutely are 100% positive of whoever was on that roof was able to pull that trigger and then get into a full sprint within less than 3 seconds. And 3 seconds is us being very, very generous on that time frame. In my personal opinion, it's probably like a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds at best. So the FBI could literally put 99% of these conspiracy theories to rest if they would just release 15 more seconds. Maybe be generous with us, since you guys want to be the most transparent administration in all of American history. Release 2 minutes. Show us the man sitting on the roof, just sitting there and just hanging out. He was ducked behind this ledge. And then all of a sudden he stands up and gets into a full sprint, sprints over to the edge of the roof, lays down, and within 1 minute of laying down in the prone position, pulls that trigger, takes that shot, and then he's up in a full sprint and then off that roof within 16 seconds. Okay, so just show us that whole video. You already showed us part of it. You showed him running across the roof. You showed him jumping off the roof. You showed him running into the, into traffic out into the street. But you didn't show us the 15 seconds prior, which showed him pulling the trigger. So that's where things kind of all got very, very suspicious from the very beginning. Then you talk about the bullet and Charlie Kirk being the man of steel, and he ate some spinach, and all of a sudden he became, had the strongest vertebrae in the history of the world that stopped a 30-06 round, and then it traveled down his spine and then fragmented, according to the local coroner. And that's kind of the story that we've been fed. Just believe that Charlie Kirk got shot with a 30-06, and Tyler Robinson was this lone trans shooter on the roof, and he had a boyfriend who wore a furry costume. Nothing to see here. His parents turned him in. If you even question that, you're a conspiracy theorist. Cash Patel will call you an anarchist. Meanwhile, he's allegedly jet setting around on a private jet to get a piece of booty from his girlfriend during a government shutdown when ATF agents that are flying and having to work at those airports aren't getting paid. Cash Patel is flying around on the FBI private jet, living the good life. But we're all the conspiracy theorists and anarchists, and I got nothing but the absolute most respect for Candace Owens. A huge fan of the work that she's done. She's given me credit a couple times on her show, and I got nothing but the best things to say about Candace. And I think you can see it. You can see that determination in her, where this isn't just some story where, to me, it's just a story, right? I barely had a few interactions with Charlie Kirk. He was actually going to bring me on to his podcast to talk about my documentaries on the child trafficking of the migrant children. And we never got to make that appointment. So I've had very few communications with Charlie, unlike her, where they basically came up from the absolute bottom together. That would be like your high school best friend. In this industry, the people that you meet that are actually the real ones and you can trust and you develop working relationships with. They've almost become like family to you. And I think that's what Charlie was to Candace. I think he looked at her and she looked at him like a big brother and a little sister and a big brother. And that was their relationship. And then she watched her brother literally get executed in front of the world to send a message, right? It was the day before 9/11. So just another coincidence. I'm sure that Israel had nothing to do with it because, how convenient would it be for one of the people that literally had the power to turn 100% of the youth against Israel. And once you lose all of that youth vote, you're never going to get it back. You're not going to get it back in the next generation. There's not going to be another Holocaust-like event or another 9/11 where everybody rallies behind the American dream and we go fight wars in the Middle East for Israel. I think those days are done. And I think that the more and more people are waking up every day, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. I think Israel is on its last leg here as far as unwavering support from America. I don't know how long it'll take for us to completely cut and sever those ties. But I think you're going to watch the entire political landscape change here in America because of this one topic, and that topic is Israel.
Yeah, it's a topic we can't sort of get away with. Some people say, well, you always talk about Israel, even here in Australian National Review, but I'm like, maybe we should stop blaming for everything they do. But the point is, as independent journalists, all roads seem to lead back to them, even including the Charlie Kirk thing. Of course, if we know patterns of past behavior, the Mossad has always got to be a prime suspect in any assassination of a political figure, including Charlie Kirk. Do you think, though, I'm getting curious, the official narratives, do you think they're getting sloppier, or it's just that independent journalism is on the rise and no one really trusts fake news media? Even the normies now don't trust the official narratives. But, do you think it's more because independent journalism is really, there's so many sleuths out there, citizen journalists and independent journalists, that collectively working together to find the evidence that can break these narratives?
Jamie, I'm so glad you asked that question because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I've been saying it from the very beginning. If this would have happened 15 years ago, this would be a completely different story. Okay. A massive role in this and how this event went down was the fact that, almost every single person in the entire audience has an iPhone 16 Pro Max and they're filming at 30 or 60 frames per second in crystal clear 4K. So your ability to zoom in and see little images of people running across the roof, 10 years ago, when we still had our Nextel flip phones or our Sidekicks or whatever, 1 megapixel camera. And, I remember when the Nextel i90 was like the first colored screen phone, and you could take like the blurriest, crappiest photos. Maybe you got it. I don't even think you had videos back then. I think it was just photos. You might be in that age range where you might remember the old Nextel phones, right? So the iPhones were played such a massive role in this entire investigation, if you will. And then also having kind of some of the experts out there, like a gentleman by the name of Truth Teller, Ian Malcolm, or Bay Sam Parker, or even Nick Fuentes, but not even Nick Fuentes because he stays more on the mainstream topics. But when you really go down the rabbit hole of who Israel is, who Mossad is, a gentleman goes by the name of Truth Teller TM over on X. I've been in his spaces on and off for about the last year, and I don't think that the guy is like literally the Charlie Kirk version of Israel. If Charlie Kirk would have dedicated a vast majority of his energy to studying Israel, the bad parts about Israel, not the fluff narrative, not this Judeo-Christian bullcrap that they try to feed us, actually what Israel has been involved in all the regime changes, the terrorist operations, the trafficking, the terrorist attacks that were false flag attacks. I mean, it's just been one after another. And then you talk about 9/11, and you see how easily they covered up 9/11. And you talk about how much power you would need to really cover up an operation like 9/11 or the USS Liberty. So when you're covering up a massive terrorist attack the size of 9/11 that kills 3,500 American citizens, or when we go into the Vegas shooting, I mean, it really doesn't matter what false flag event or what terrorist attack you look at. Israel somehow played a role, or at the very least, Israel knew that it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, and they stood by and they did absolutely nothing about it. So for Israel to be prime suspect number one, it's just common sense because they're the only country in the world that has an entire Wikipedia page that is literally dedicated to their assassinations dating all the way back to the 1950s. And I don't recall, maybe I haven't been on it as long as you have, but I don't recall anybody from Israel ever getting charged with assassinating anybody. Do you? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, good question. I'm not aware of it. And it's like many of us, I think in the past, some of us may have been pro-Israel because we're also pro-vaccine. We'll just believe what we're told. But it's only when I think we start to question, and like Charlie Kirk had a turning point. I mean, we were hoping to have him as a headline speaker at the Free Speech Summit in Australia, but only on the basis he would agree to a debate on Israel, because at that point he was still pro-Israel. But of course he was changing at that time because obviously a lot of his supporter base was starting to question, why are we pro-Israel? And one thing I always said about Charlie Kirk, he, good Christian lad, he had principles and morals. You compare Charlie to, say, Ben Shapiro, the two very different people, where, Ben's the sort of person that would take shekels for anything. You got Mark Levine. I was reporting live for Australian National at CPAC in February. Mark Levine, as he was on stage there basically saying, Palestinians but should not be called animals as an offense to animals. They're below animals and they need to be eradicated. Now, that's clearly hate speech and violent speech. But when Mark Levine says it because he's Jewish and pro-Israel, that's perfectly okay. So it clearly highlights that hate speech is really just to silence those of us that wish to criticize, Israel. How do you see quickly on the MAGA thing? Because I did report back then. I was disappointed after CPAC. I was warned it was a Zionist fest, but I saw firsthand the handlers handling the Trump administration. And I had to come back and report to our followers, Australian National Review, that they weren't going to get the political revolution with Trump that many of us hoped for. Where do you see MAGA? I saw it splitting then, but you'd certainly say make America great, America first is certainly, it's not going to happen with Israel still trying to control the administration.
No, and I don't think it can, Jamie. I think, a dog doesn't serve two masters, and it's really that simple. When you're talking about, the most powerful country in the world that literally leads Western civilization, if Australia was praying for a Trump revolution, they weren't the only country. Guatemala, Mexico, probably Honduras, and multiple other nations all over the world that I've been to, we're all praying that President Trump was going to come in and was going to clean house, because it's mainly these intelligence operations or these intelligence agencies and their network of NGOs that operate in foreign soil, which allow our government to basically dictate and control your politics. I'm not so positive about Australia exactly, but in Guatemala in 2023, I have an entire documentary out called Regime Change, where it goes through the entire operation of how our government, USAID, our State Department, and our intelligence agencies, the CIA, rigged the elections in Guatemala. And it's not like it's, Dominion voting machines here in America and all this stuff was happening behind the scenes and you can't see it all. They used this system called TREP, which our government basically forced them to buy, in this new election software, which costs $16 million more than the other one. And there's no justifiable reason on why they chose it or why they changed it. They just felt like doing it and paying a lot more money, so they did it. And then this software played a role in rigging the election, but it's same day in-person voting, paper ballots, and those ballots are all uploaded via these forms, and these forms are uploaded to the cloud, and you can kind of see it all in real time. Well, at 9 o'clock on election night, one candidate's in the lead who they think that was going to win the election. And then all of a sudden, everything goes down. Machines pretty much go down for about 10 to 12 hours. They come back online the next morning around 9 a.m. Magically, all the votes are counted. And some dude that they've never heard of that was in 8th place during the preliminaries somehow magically becomes president of Guatemala. And now that same president continues to cover up the fact that 190,052 migrant children under the ages of 17, actually between the ages of 0 and 17, have been kidnapped and trafficked out of Guatemala and have arrived at the U.S. border. And we know this because our government has received them and documented, and all of the numbers I'm giving you are directly from HHS's website. And he's covering that up. And then after the story broke that there was this huge trafficking operation going on in Guatemala, I got contacted by the Attorney General, who I came down to Guatemala to interview, and was given a story where they raided 5 of these NGOs that were trafficking these children, one of them being Save the Children. And in 2000, this happened in 2024. This happened on April 12th of 2024 when she decided to raid this foundation. I went down there in December of 2024 and got this information. I came back with it, and then I went back again in February to release the film, and I came back with a hard drive with even more information on it. But she wanted to do a joint raid with our government, and they turned it down. They refused to raid the same NGOs that they knew that were trafficking children from Guatemala to America. And it was these NGOs that were playing a role in receiving and then distributing these children throughout America. So 12 days after that NGO was raided, Anthony Blinken takes a surprise trip down to Guatemala, and he holds a press conference with the president where he tells the president what a great, amazing job he's doing. Guatemala has so much opportunity, and he sees so much money is about to flow in and investments in Guatemala. Billions of dollars is going to be flowing into Guatemala, he said. But, you've been doing a great job on that corruption problem. But if you don't get that corruption problem fixed, well, I don't know if you're going to see any of that money. So same situation where Biden went to Ukraine and demanded that the attorney general and the prosecutor get fired, or you ain't getting the money. Blinken does the same thing, holds a press conference, and basically demands that the attorney general of Guatemala get fired. And if she doesn't, well, you ain't getting the money. And then, so basically for the last 6 to 12 months, our government, well, under the Biden administration anyways, was on this relentless crusade to carry out a regime change and remove this attorney general from power. And it failed. And I thought for sure, I was praying, I was talking, the Guatemalan government, they absolutely love the Trump administration. They would worship the ground that man walks on. They would literally lick the floors at Mar-a-Lago to take a selfie with Trump. That's how much these foreigners and these other governments absolutely love the Trump administration. And I was over there saying, guys, listen, he's picking Mark Rubio for the Secretary of State. He's picking this guy for this role. He's picking this guy for this guy. Those are bad dudes. Mark Rubio was literally one of the senators who signed a declaration demanding, with like 12 other senators, and he led the charge on it, backed by USAID, that they drop the investigation into the election fraud and they allow their keywords, right? The peaceful transition of power. So Rubio led that, and then he gets appointed to Secretary of State and is supposed to go down to Guatemala and shut down USAID and close the big USAID operation when, you seen what Doge was doing. Elon Musk basically got shut out the door because he was exposing how corrupt our government was and how much money our government was stealing from us. Every day they were finding 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion, 50 billion. And it's just, we still have yet to see an arrest. So when I say MAGA is cooked and I think MAGA is dead, I mean, we're what, almost 11 months, at the very least, exactly 10 months to the day that Trump walked down that elevator. And we have not seen one political arrest. And people like myself have put out 6 full-length documentaries specifically documenting the amount of trafficking of the migrant children into America and how our government, between DHS and HHS and Alejandro Mayorkas, Xavier Becerra, and Robin Dunmercos, turned America into the child kidnapping capital of the world. Over 452,121 migrant children from 183 different nations arrived at our border, and they arrived at our border without parents. Our government took physical possession of all 452,000 children. Then they put them into a system where there were so many children getting sexually assaulted by the employees at these facilities, at these NGOs that are supposed to act like their parents, that even the Biden administration and Merrick Garland's DOJ had an open investigation and file a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. Okay. Then Pam Bondi comes in and drops that lawsuit. Out of that 452,000 migrant children that were trafficked into America, our government took physical possession of all of them, but they delivered 350,000 of them to grown men and women all across America and couldn't locate a single one. Not one, which means that they only do one wellness check 30 days after the child's delivered here in America. And they pick up the phone. They said, "Hey, Jamie, how's Julie doing?" And you go, "Julie's doing good." They go, "Great, thanks." Click. That's considered, we found one. We know where that child is. You don't answer, or maybe you pick up and you go, "Oh, that girl? Yeah, I don't know. I read an ad on Facebook and some dude paid me $500 to hand me to take his ID and go pick his daughter up from this company at the airport." I was like, I needed $500. So I went and picked her up. I dropped him off at a McDonald's. It's the last time I seen her. I'm like, okay, thanks. Child missing. 350,000 children over a 4-year period. So you guys you're in Australia, right? I went to was it the Collingwood, the Aussie rules football? Yeah. I went to that stadium's holds 110,000 people. So fill that up over 3 times, every single seat in the entire stadium, and then vanish that. And that's how many children our government lost in a 4-year period.
Yeah, that's very concerning. And just the extent of this as a global criminal cartel that's able to do this. And of course, that's why they also love war. War creates orphans as well. But I think, this was a conspiracy theory once, and then it's now become out more and more. Just on the Trump issue, do you think MAGA ever was genuine, or from day one, Trump? I think Trump obviously wants to do good, but whether he's just very limited in his powers because he knows they'll Charlie Kirk him, or they just manufactured him as a useful idiot all along to serve Israel's agenda.
Man, you're coming with the best questions, man. You're good at this. I think that it's hard to really say because I got into the political arena late. Okay. So in 2021, I was just a humble Bitcoin podcaster talking about Bitcoin, talking about investing, talking about your need to get away from the US dollar and the fiat system, because that's really the root cause of all this evil. The banks are. And then I put out in the video in 2022 of Andrew Tate saying that Bitcoin was a better investment than a house, and they demonetized my YouTube channel over it. That same day, I just happened to be filming at CPAC for a company called LFA TV. At 6:45, I got all the text that I was losing got demonetized. And at 7:03, I walked out of the door and the owner of LFA TV offered me a job. So that was really me getting basically catapulted into politics. So me immediately going, okay, I know very little about politics. I need to immediately catch up. The best thing I can do is focus on just Trump, right? I wanted to study Trump. I wanted to learn about everything that he did in the past. And I went hard into seeing, kind of behind the curtain. I would search, best Trump speech on YouTube. And before I could watch it, I'd be forced to watch a 60-second unskippable ad of Hillary Clinton telling me what a bad guy this was, what a bad guy Trump was, and why we can never let him get elected again. And he's an insurrectionist and all these things. So I started to see the left versus right. And then ever since then, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. There is no end to this rabbit hole. So if your audience is thinking that one day they're going to find the answer that they've been looking for and it's all going to make sense, it's never going to happen. So I just say the rabbit hole is never ending. Just enjoy the ride, and you'll hit a few rabbis along the way on the whole On the way down, we kind of call them rabbi holes now, because it seems like Israel and these rabbis are literally behind everything. And if you dig deep enough down any rabbit hole that you're going down, eventually you will find a road that leads you to Israel. So do I think Trump was, looking back at 2016 Trump, maybe it was just his charisma and his ability to sell it better than he has now that he's almost 80. He doesn't have that gift, that suave, like that smooth kind of Trump, really quick with the witty, responses. And a majority of us are up enough now. Like when Trump said in 2016, Trump would say fake news. Like none of us knew. Like, why does it? I keep lecturing and talking about fake news. He never went on to really show us and explain us and go into great detail about how they were lying and it was fake news. He would just kind of just call them out and expect us to believe it. And then eventually we got to a point where it was like, oh my gosh, it's fake news. So anytime Trump said fake news, we just ignored the story because we were like, yeah, it's fake news. So he really sold us the MAGA Kool-Aid. I was out campaigning for that dude. Before today's show, I just took it down, but I got a photo of Charlie Kirk up there. I had an autographed picture of Trump. I was wearing, I have from the Trump assassination, I got the autographed Trump sneakers. We live in Michigan, so I would take my son out, and it had to have been like -5 out. We had hand warmers on, jumpsuits, snow hats, like the whole 9 yards. We're out there for 4 hours in line just to get in. We actually didn't even make it to Trump speak because it was so cold. I felt so like a bad father because my son was like a popsicle and he was sure, Dad, I don't want to leave. I'm like, bro, I'm looking at your fingers. You can't feel your fingers right now. He's like, I know, Dad. I'm like, let's go home, bud. We'll see him another time this summer, So that's how dedicated I was to Trump. And I was the absolute, yes, any of my friends, my family, like I wouldn't be welcome at Thanksgiving if my one aunt was over there because I was so pro-Trump, like, and I'd want to wear my MAGA hoodie. And like, that's how much I love that man. I would have taken a bullet for him. And now I'm over here telling you that he might be the Antichrist. I am convinced that that man is the most powerful and most dangerous man on the planet. He has so much power. And what terrifies me the most is how he's willing to abuse the Constitution more so than the Biden administration. And he tries to act like his administration doesn't do that, right? It's red flag Pam Bondi's already coming in for gun control. You already see him going, well, maybe Charlie Kirk would have changed his tune now about free speech as they're trying to blame Tyler Robinson, this radical dude is a lone shooter with a trans boyfriend. And now all of a sudden it just feels like we're getting the Patriot Act all over again. We're starting to lose more freedom that we don't want to lose. And Trump was supposed to be the man that was never going to take that freedom. He wasn't not only going to not take freedom from us, he was going to give us freedom back. He was going to restore this country back to the people. And he hasn't done that. He's restored this country. He's given Israel more power than they've ever had. He's done more things for Israel than any other president in all of U.S. history has done at this point in their term. I mean, our government took 9 bills to the floor that were pro-Israel in the first 8 months of this administration. 9 bills in 8 months that are pro-Israel. We haven't got one bill. Not even anything that Trump's actually wanted to accomplish has got done because our government came together and was like, yep, Trump's got a good idea. This plan's going to work. Let's codify these Doge findings. Let's eliminate this CPS child trafficking empire. It's executive order after executive order after executive order. And then he tries to attack people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are literally his closest ally. And now he's literally campaigning for Lindsey Graham to get reelected. And Lindsey Graham is like the psycho that we all hate. And we can't figure out how this man keeps winning elections when you go to rallies and the dude is getting booed off stage. Like there has to be somebody like your high school gym teacher could run and we would probably all vote for him if we never even met the guy because we just don't want to vote for Lindsey Graham. If you just put on a MAGA hat or America First hat or a Republican hat, like that dude would win the election by the landslide if we had free and fair elections here in America. But that's a whole nother, we can get into that rabbit hole if you want to talk about that too. Everything that Trump promised us, mass deportations, political arrest, accountability, nothing. I'll end it there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are disappointed. There's still many people out there think Trump's saving Israel to last and playing 5D chess. But I think that's just absurd at this point of day. I think a lot of hopium, which I think is able to take advantage of that. Even the whole QAnon thing after CPAC, we really come back and going, well, seems to be a Israeli psyop. When you see General Flynn was there and he's tweeting that he stands with Israel and he was meant to be one of the lead people considered, part of the military that was trying to save America. So I think people have to accept that, Israel's not being saved to last. It's going to be up to Americans, particularly to do something about that. Let's look at the future as far as potential solutions. Now, I've often said that BRIC nations, led by China, Russia, want a multipolar world. They're nationalist leaders, national governments, which is really what we should support. people that have strong nationalist leaders. America could dump Israel and join the BRICS or be a part of a multipolar world and do very well. But unless they do dump Israel, my view is America sadly will fall. And does America have to fall for Israel to fall? I mean, Israel sucked dry the British Empire and like a parasite and destroyed it. And now they're very close, I think, to destroying the American empire. What's your views? Can America be saved? I thought Elon Musk was the last chance financially to save it. Can it be saved, or do we have to accept America might have to fall to be part of getting rid of Israel?
I think you just have to come to terms with the fact that Israel or America has to fall. Honestly, at the bottom of my heart, my gut is telling me that America can't be saved, because when you look at what needed to be done to completely slay this Leviathan, if you will, the first and most important aspect was USAID. And that's why everybody, I kind of got into it. The JQ guys are out there who are completely anti-Israel. Everything's the Jews' fault. And you start to look at those and you start to listen to where they're coming from. And it's kind of hard to argue with them on a lot of points because there's just so much evidence to back it up. And then on the other hand, you have the Trump loyalist, right? Where Trump can't do anything wrong. No matter what he says, we're just going to sit here and back him. And I'm watching more and more people switching from I'm an absolute Trump loyalist like I was, to you kind of just look the other way at a few things, to you start getting more aligned with what the people in the JQ space are saying. So I don't think with USAID that's what got me in the argument with them in the first place, was because I was saying, guys, if Trump's the bad guy, which is what they were convinced on, that he's part of the Epstein files and he was trafficking children and he ran Miss Universe and Miss USA pageants and Miss Teen USA pageants. And there's videos out there of him talking how he can just walk into the locker room and just say hi to the girls because he's running the pageant. That's his job. And there's just a lot of weird things about Trump that, didn't make sense in the past. And I think are starting to make more sense now when you look at it from, this dude isn't the hero he thought he was. He was literally sent here as part of the system to keep the system in play, to act like there was actually going to be a choice or an option when there never was really a choice. He was behind Operation Warp Speed. I mean, he rushed through that vaccine. Maybe he didn't mandate it and maybe said he never would, but at the same time, he still put a lot of things in place, which I don't think any other presidents could have bypassed the laws and regulations the way that Trump did, and the amount of people that got behind him and supported it because it was Trump and we trusted him, and he was literally the Trojan horse. So I don't think, unless you're going to go after USAID and you're going to go out guns blazing, like Elon Musk, it's it was the second or third week, he's like, oh man, this dropped so big, there's so much criminal activity here, I guarantee you're going to see arrest. And then we didn't see any. And then he exposed more, and the crimes got higher, and the stakes got bigger, and it was just more money, more money, more money. Now we're we have a Doge clock now because it's so much, and it's almost up to $1 trillion, and we still haven't had one person arrested for it. Then maybe what is it, November? So this was in August. I went over to Mexico with a journalist called Oscar Ramirez. He calls me up. He's like, hey, you want to go find out where those migrant children are going? I say, I can get us smuggled into Guatemala by the Mexican cartels on water rafts. They do this open trade between Mexico and Guatemala there, where you have the bridge that goes over and there's National Guard there working all the checkpoints. But if you just want to get smuggled into Guatemala really quick, you can pay a cartel member and they'll take you right across on these water rafts. So we get smuggled across into Guatemala on these water rafts to show about a half mile on the other side of the river is OMI. And OMI is one of the Office of Migration and Immigration or whatever. It's IOM, MOI. There's all these 3 different acronyms. It's one of those. And they're right across the border and they're still operational. And then he sends me videos from his boys in Panama. They work for Centerfront, which is their version of Border Patrol. And he's showing me these facilities, probably with capacity of holding 5,000 to 10,000 migrants. And that's how many we're moving through them every single day. And they're still operational. They still got staff there. There might not be, tens of thousands of migrants, but the invasion that was designed to collapse civilization in America, all of that infrastructure, Alejandro Mayorkas spent about $350 million. It's still functional. It's not just functional, it's operational. They put this on a pause, and they are literally riding out the next 4 years of the Trump administration, and Trump's doing it to himself, and the Democrats and the Republicans are both more than happy to do it for him, right? The Republicans love when they lose an election and they give control to the Democrats, because then they get to play, oh, I'm the good guy. Republicans' hands are tied. It's Democrats who are destroying our country. If we were in power, we would rein in that out of control government. And then we gave them back the House in 2022, and they didn't rein in anything. It was almost like they wanted to sabotage themselves. It was just lip service, lip service, lip service. They lectured us for 2 years about how if they got back power of the House, which I don't think they ever thought they were going to, they would rein in the Biden administration, because here in America, when a president signs an executive order, that executive order has to be funded. It's funded through legislation. So at any time, our House could have came together and wrote legislation that defunded any one of Biden's executive orders that we didn't want to happen. That's one of the true powers of the House of Representatives here in America. They can defund any initiative by the president anytime they want. They just have to write the legislation for it. So our government could have reined in the Biden administration. They did it. Now the Republicans are in party. We gave them, again, this is like 2016. We gave him the House, we gave him the executive branch, and we gave him the Senate. And he's got key people in positions that are purposely undermining every step of his agenda. We can't get anybody in order. We can't get any bills passed. We can't get anything codified, which the exact same thing is going to happen if we lose the presidency in 2028. A Democrat's going to come in, and on day one, they'll sign this. Last time it was 93 executive orders in the first 24 hours of the Biden administration. And then I think it was 163 over the next 8 months or whatever it was. Trump has signed so many executive orders. Literally day one, the president will spend the entire day signing 1,000 executive orders to basically veto and destroy every immigration policy that Trump put into place. And as they're getting up to that 2 months leading up to that election, they'll be Biden 2.0. Our borders are wide open. We're no longer doing mass deportations. We're firing every ICE agent. We're actually going to go back and we're going to investigate the ICE agents who were breaking the law and didn't take their oath to the Constitution, were following unlawful orders. And I think they're going to put those people in prison as well, just to set an example of, hey, right, we write the rules. These are the rules. We want to open borders and we don't want to deport anybody. And if you're going to go and break the law, then, well, we're going to charge you as a government employee to make an example out of you. I don't put it past this administration. So I don't think America can be saved. I don't think that people have the willpower. I don't think the testosterone levels are high enough. I think the FBI and the CIA and our intelligence agencies have technologies that we can't even wrap our heads around, that are so far above and ahead of us. When we think we're playing chess, we're playing checkers, and they're really playing chess, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how else to better explain it. It just seems like we're always so far behind. And every time we think we got something and we bring forward that evidence and we present it and we think, yep, this is it, people are going to prison, nobody gets arrested.
Yeah, do you make very good points? Let's have a quick ad break. I want to come back afterwards and ask you about Erica Kirk. Why so many people think that she's fake?
The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks, here with McIntyre Report with independent journalist all the way from America, Ryan Matta. Ryan, let's talk quickly before we wrap up the show on Erica Kirk. Now, of course, when Charlie was first assassinated, people didn't want to say much because obviously a grieving wife, etc. But as more and more time goes on, I think people have every right to question her behavior. Why does it seem inauthentic? And then obviously Candace and others have done quite a bit of research on this as well. But why do you think people just think Erica is fake? It's just, what's going on here?
You know, I think a lot has to do with her past, being an actress, the roles that she played in some of these reality TV shows where she was literally, I don't know, trying out for a role that was going to basically be the perfect housewife for very successful, very wealthy, very powerful individuals. You know, some of the music videos she's in where she's zip lining down Broadway in Las Vegas on Fremont Street, and in the back of the music video, there's the date 9/10 and 10/10. Just these weird anomalies. And then you start digging into her past a little bit, and you start to find out that she worked with Romanian angels. And I believe it was at 17 years old. And everything stated that I'm saying here is just allegedly. This is just my opinion. Nothing stated here is a fact. These are just some rumors that I've heard on the internet. So take that for what it is. Romanian angels was this institution or this charity, this foundation that was working with Romanian children, orphans, and they were helping them find loving parents. And then there's reports that just came out last week that have been translated now to English from the Romanian government, where there were military bases where minor children were being basically locked up so that they could be sold for sex to individuals on the military base. That document just came out. I just reported on it last week. Erica Kirk and her organization were connected to that same exact military base. So what is a 17-year-old whose father, at the very least, worked on the Iron Dome for Israel and works at, I think it's Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. And then the mother has a really weird past that's directly involved and connected and tied to our own government. And then Erica Kirk at 17 has a foundation that has a net worth of like $27 million before she's at the age of 18, something crazy like that. This might be ballpark numbers, but dig into that and you'll find that I'm pretty sure I'm close on a lot of that, on a lot of what I just said there. And then you just start going, well, where did she meet Charlie at? And then you start going into how she met Charlie, and she'll tell you that nothing is by coincidence, nothing is by chance, right? And she's openly talking about it. And then there was one video, this was probably maybe a month or 2 months before the assassination, and she's on Charlie's podcast. And they start asking questions from the audience. And a couple of them are about their relationship. And they start going, yeah, like something about our kids' birthdays. And Erica's like, how long have we been married for? And she's like, and Charlie's like, 4 years? And she's like, yeah, 4 years. And we were married and she's like, she's behind him. She forgot her own wedding date. So then you ask any girl that you've ever been in a relationship, every guy that's dated any girl from the beginning of all of history, like girls are really, really weird about dates specifically. They'll know the first date they text you. They know the first date you called them back, the first date you went on a movie, the first place you went to eat. And the day that you asked her to be your girlfriend is such an important moment in that relationship for you. The only time that date becomes irrelevant is when you actually ask her to marry you. And that becomes the most important date, right? So women are frugal about these kind of things. And to watch that interview, I wish I could play it right here for your audience. Maybe your editor should just edit it and try to throw it in there real quick. It's so worth watching.
Well, this one's easy. How long have you been married, and when did you know it was time to get married?
We've been married since 2021. We laugh about this because our dates are so messed up because of babies, meaning there's so many dates to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anniversaries, kids' birth
May
dates.
14th,
yeah,
August
all the
23rd.
Things. So we've been married for
How did you know it was time to get married?
4 years.
I mean,
how did we know? You just know.
It's also don't waste your time. Right?
Don't waste your time. And plus, we were ready to start our life together.
That's right. Okay,
that was an easy one.
That's easy.
You can't watch her talk about getting her husband and getting their wedding date confused because there's so many birthdays. And then she starts to go on and try to say the child's birthdays, and Charlie's like finishing her sentences for her. So it's probably one of the most bizarre videos I've ever seen. So you watch all that, you start hearing this, you don't really know what's true, you don't know what's not true. Maybe she's just a grieving widow. Maybe there's a lot more to this story. And if I was just a betting man, I would have my odds on, I would be taking odds on that there's a lot more to this story.
Yeah, I think you're on the money there. Now, JD Vance, Erica Kirk has a future ticket on the next US presidential. Do you think that's being planned?
I think that's almost guaranteed. And she could pull like a Nikki Haley and kind of implode on herself because she's just so bad that she doesn't get she's not a very good actor in my personal opinion. So if we're just talking about her skill sets that she has, being an actor isn't one of them. I don't think you've seen how she couldn't even play, even if she couldn't play a grieving widow when she's literally supposed to be the grieving widow. And if this was all a setup, at the very least, it was still her husband. It was still somebody she cared for, as she should have, I think. And she carried his children, and she spent the last at least 4 years in his life with him almost every day. You would think that there would be so much of an emotional connection there that you wouldn't even be able to function and operate. I don't know. Maybe she's just built different than we are. Maybe some people just grieve in different ways. So I don't know. It could be completely normal. I don't think it is. And you would think that being an actress, she would be able to actually play that part. Even if she wasn't, you think she would have played it better, in my personal opinion. So do I think she can play the role of a VP? Mike Pence did. Kamala Harris did, right? So there's definitely a probability that she could pull that role off, but would it be the best pick? I don't know. Would she almost be put in to purposely sabotage JD Vance? It seems like the intelligence agency is really pot committed on making sure that JD Vance is their next president. And I think that this publicity stunt with Erica Kirk, I think it's definitely a possibility. Now let's go a step further, and let's say that some of this unfolds and it was an Israeli operation and Erica Kirk wasn't involved in it, right? We actually get to the bottom of it. Netanyahu called this out, and that's the story, right? Erica Kirk was completely oblivious. She was legitly the grieving widow, had nothing to do with it. I would say almost guaranteed she's vice president. It would be, if we actually got to the bottom of this and had a legit investigation in the Charlie Kirk assassination, we find out Israel's involved and somehow Erica Kirk wasn't involved, and it was just Mossad, and it was this really hush-hush private military operation. 6 dudes flew in. Here's how it happened. They took them out. Our intelligence agencies actually caught them, and they're already in prison. They just haven't told the public yet because of the war and national security threats and all this other stuff. Maybe. I'm not holding my breath on that one, though. So what do you guys think?
Then you got the other people that are saying that Charlie faked his own death, which, I've told people, like, it's probably less than 1% chance of that. Israel generally doesn't give you that choice. But they use the Erica Kirk is fake as part of that. Do you think that's just part of PSYOPs pushed by Israel to kind of, for those people that should know better, that then easily go and fall for, they don't follow fake news, but then they fall for stuff that really they should, check out the facts a bit more and go, look, the odds of him faking his death and being successful at that, it just, he was hit by force by something, whether it was the exploding lapel, highly probable. But you can't kind of fake being hit by force like that. So it just dismisses that. But do you think that's kind of pushed by them to just confuse the waters?
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's the perfect, I guess if she was a plant, be the perfect plant, because she's the grieving widow, right? If you attack her, how dare you? How dare you question the grieving widow, right? So she almost becomes untouchable. I don't think that they realized how sloppy they were. Like, there's that one video, just specifically that one person who happened to be recording inside the cafeteria. And I don't even know what they were recording, because they were turning the phone in the opposite direction that the man was running across the roof. So it wasn't like they were trying to track that person. I think that person accidentally got caught in that video, and they published it, not even realizing that if you zoom in, you can barely see this little black speck kind of running across the screen. And then it got enhanced a little bit. And then all of a sudden you could clearly see that somebody was running across that roof. I don't think that they ever thought that video was going to come out. If that video didn't drop, and the other video of the other dude showing him in the prone position, we would have been clueless on the time frames. And without that, knowing that first initial 3 seconds that he was up in a full sprint, maybe you could have believed the narrative. And then if they would have been smarter and said that he was shot with some type of 22 round, right, or anything but a 30-06, this story could have been really believable. The part that makes it the least believable is the timeline and then the 30-06 itself. So, if we were in different times, if we were 5 years ago, they probably would have gotten away with this pretty easily. And I think that they assumed that this was going to be one of these operations as well. And then if it is even like, so people go, well, why do you say it was Israel? Well, obviously the obvious, they have Mossad, and they have an entire branch of their military that's dedicated to doing assassinations. And they're the only government in the world that has that. But they're also the only government in the world that has that much power over our own government. Okay. So unless it was our military And for some reason, who would our military be? Why would our military benefit from wanting to take out Charlie Kirk? It seems like the only country that would benefit from taking out Charlie Kirk was Israel. Literally the next day, Tucker Carlson and Clayton Morris, two of the largest. Clayton Morris has the largest conservative podcast in America as far as consistent daily viewers. Candace Owens is number 2. Or Candace Owens is actually number 1. Redacted's number 2. But at the time, Redacted was number 1 and Tucker Carlson was number 2. Those two guys together were going to release, and they rented out some event center, and they were doing like the 9/11 truth hearings, while simultaneously Tucker Carlson was dropping his documentary about how Israel was behind 9/11, and that was going to release on 9/11. So the day after Charlie Kirk would have been assassinated, if Charlie Kirk wasn't assassinated, headline news across the entire world would have been how Israel was behind 9/11. And everybody from your grandpa, your brother, your aunts and uncles would have been glued to the screen that day, and that's what would have taken over headline news. Then you add in the $150 million that he turned down from Benjamin Netanyahu. That would be like me and you. Maybe you're El Chapo, and you're like, "Hey, Ryan, you've earned your way up the ranks. Come sit down, son. I want to give you my daughter. I want to marry you to my daughter. You're going to become one of the family, and I'm going to give you $150 million." And you're like, "Thanks, El Chapo. I've already built my own stuff over here. So me and my crew, I'm just going to take my guys, all the ones that you put into place and all the ones you helped me recruit and gave me money for so I could support. And I built this so that you helped me build this entire operation, which was supposed to be designed to protect Israel and talk about Israel. And we built this larger than life political machine that was so powerful, it replaced the GOP here in America, the most powerful political organization in the entire country. Charlie Kirk built an organization that was going to replace it. And then he turned down an offer from the boss and basically gave him the middle finger and said, not only am I not going to talk about pro-Israel, I'm actually going to completely cut ties with Israel altogether. And just by all of this is just coincidence that the next day he takes a bullet to the throat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Our investigations, that's why we're so confident putting up $10 million challenge. Anyone don't want to say Israel didn't do it. And we said exactly what Israel would do if they were guilty. First of all, they would blame a left-wing patsy, transgender, lone gunman, just like they did with the JFK assassination. And we said, look, it's never the lone gunman, it's someone close to security detail. Look, they're close where you'll find the person that probably killed Charlie. And of course, all these things, how do we predict and know, where to look? Because we just study past patterns of behavior is the fastest way to know those things. So independent journalism obviously is on the right track. Thanks for your time today, Ryan. It's I'm really confident that with the growth of independent journalism, independent media, that more truth will come out, especially on September 11th. I've always said, wait till Americans find out that Israel did September 11th. Then I think you may see a real revolution in your country. But until that day, I think it's certainly getting closer. America is still in a bit of bother. But thanks for your time today. Appreciate it, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Can I say one more thing before I jump off?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I got a new documentary that's going to be releasing on Monday. It's called Never in America, and it's about how the United States government, via CPS, is running the world's largest child kidnapping for-profit operation, where they're kidnapping roughly 480,000 children from American parents. 83% of the time, CPS's own data shows that they are in the wrong, and 54% of the time, those children never get to come home to see their parents again. That's roughly 215,000 children who are kidnapped from a loving American family. They are ripped out of their parents' arms by our government at gunpoint, and they're put into a system where today here in America, if you are rescued from child sex trafficking in our country today, there's a 98% probability that you came through that foster care system. So whatever environment we are taking these kids out of, we are definitely not putting them in a better environment. The entire system is broken. So if you really want to see how evil the United States government is, come over to X on Monday at Ryan Matta Media. It's going to be exclusively launched on X for the first 48 hours. And we'll try to put it up on a few other platforms, depending if it gets taken down or deplatformed, but it'll be up over on X. Thanks you so much, Jamie. I appreciate it, brother.
Look forward to that, Ryan. Thanks for your time. Talk to you soon.
God bless.
So we have for today's episode, great interview there with Ryan, and follow his work. He's on X, of course, but also Facebook, etc. We'll be back next week with some more on the McIntyre Report.